1 year down the line, we're doing another retreat, and this retreat is about moving from ideas to actions. So these are ideas that we conceived during the thinking process.
People don't associate with talking and thinking, they associate with action.
We have to move the church back into the hearts of people. And that church is a church of action.
I don't see how we're going to move into the next 2 or 3 decades without having a deliberate, transformative agenda.
We have met, we have thought, we have discussed. Now it's time to do something.
So last year in 2015 when we did this, it was more about thinking and try to really get to a point where we really think through what we want to do. So right now, it's moving from the ideas that we've been trying to think through to put them into action, to really see how to do some things that will change our country and also add value to our society and to ourselves as young people.
I definitely, first of all, think it's fantastic that we're moving from ideas to action, because I feel like everyone gets to have the conversation going. But what happens after the conversation is actually what really matters.
Basically, moving from just thinking to action takes us to a level where we can actually be used by the country to create, develop, and give a forum for the youth.
But the important thing is just to start today, to start learning your lessons, make your mistakes early, and get moving.
And where does action come from? It must come from God's plan. If God had a plan, what does that mean for me? God's plan was that you create godly nations. So what is a godly nation? A godly nation is a nation obedient to God's ordinances, or in effect obedient to the Bible, which is now called the kingdom. That is what we call kingdom philosophy. That kingdom philosophy attempts to create God's kingdom on earth, so that His will is done on earth, not just in heaven. So our action must be to create a godly nation here on earth.
And one thing that actually stood out to me especially was in regards to the church and how it can bring a lot of influence in terms of how this nation can be changed. And following the principles of Jesus in doing this is something that would be radical and out of the box.
From the 2 days retreat, the team came up with 3 action points. How can Aylf take Vision 2030 to the grassroots by August 2017? How can Aylf create and control the registration data in all universities across 7 countries? How do we institutionalize Aylf?
Because I asked a simple question. How many of you have read Vision 2030? Can I see hands up? How many of you have read Vision 2030? Hands up. Okay. How many of you have not read Vision 2030? Hands up.
How does Aylf take Vision 2030 to the grassroots?
How do you have a Vision 2030 conversation with a taxi guy, or with a matatu driver, or with a petrol station attendant?
We need to paint the grassroots with Vision 2030 everywhere, like Safaricom does it.
And our discussion revolved around delivery of Vision 2030 to the common mwananchi in this country.
I absolutely believe, and if I had to do it over again, one area that I would actually emphasize a lot more is creating demand for Vision 2030 at the grassroots.
I don't think there's any other way. But until the grassroots begin to see things the way we see them, we are really not doing very much. They must demand. We can only push an idea so far. Until that idea is being demanded, it can't really go very far.
We need to move away from abstracting this and realize it's about our lives. And so it is vital that we have this agenda that Aylf has, of this transformational agenda, that you're pushing it, and that we, the rest of us, support it, and support it with every resource available to us.
How do we get a database for all the membership of Aylf that extends to all the university students in all the 7 countries that Aylf has a presence in East Africa? So that database is going to be very key, not just for us as Aylf, but for all our partners.
Accessing this data for business is about the best thing you can do for business today. We will pay for it. Yeah? Because even in our accessing it, we will want you to give us 1,000 volunteers or 1,000 students who can go to Kirinyaga and do this. 20,000 students who can go to Kisumu and do that.
And finally, with creating an institution that will outlast us, that will, in generations to come, still impact, still lead, and still train.
Because we came to realize that if you do not institutionalize something and then it only revolves around individuals, then you are surely hell-bent on making that thing fail, for lack of a better word. So how do we institutionalize AYLF and give it structures and give it a system that it can run for posterity beyond us?
With the 3 action points that we came up with, we have formed committees that are going to make them happen.
So we come back in a year's time and say, group 1, what did you do? Group 2, what did you do? And if one group hasn't done anything in a year's time, the question will be easy to say why and who. So I think it's a great way of putting the peg down for accountability purposes.
Once, like today, we've committed to have the 3 groups set out and do some agenda. You must stay focused and committed to the cause. If you lose focus, then you lose everything.
So I think we've had clearly a fantastic time thinking about how. Now we need to actually get that rubber onto the road. These things need to turn from ideas and then become actual actions.
I believe what we have set out to do this year is actually achievable. And in the next 1 year, I am sure we'll have success stories.
I believe that whatever it is that we've set out to do is actually achievable. Why can't we? People have done bigger things. Why can't we?
Since I believe as a person, then definitely I know we can.
I believe that it is definitely possible for these things to be achieved.
I believe we can reach out to the common mwananchi with Vision 2030 and make them understand what really this vision is about.
Naamini kabisa moyo wangu wote kwamba mambo ambayo tumediscuss leo hayataishia hapo, kwamba nitapeleka nyumbani, hasa zaidi kwa vijana.
The clear issue for me is that hearts are burdened by God. So I'm asking to hear back from God. That burden in that person's heart has come from God, has come from the Holy Spirit. Let me hear those burdens.
I think that AYLF's focus on transforming this country is timely and absolutely necessary.
This was an exceptional space. The sense that I got just from the few moments we were there was that you have a very ambitious but thoughtful group that's determined to make a big impact in this country and on this continent.
We are looking at AYLF as an organization through which we can begin to ask the question, what do the youth of Kenya want? How do they want that delivered? And how can we help them get there?
What the young people look up to is that mentorship, leadership, so that someone can hold your hand and walk you through and say, I've been through this journey, these are the mistakes I made, and these are the successes.
80% of the time, all you need is to show up. I find that many people don't actually believe in the power of showing up. But once you're there, then you can impact. And so when we say show up for someone. Not even that, but invite your children, invite your son, your daughter, yes, to take part in some of these activities. For the gathering, invite your son, invite a nephew. Why? Because you'll begin to see something, you'll begin to see changes in that person that will make you realize the effect you can have which you didn't know about.
Definitely there's a big need for mentorship for the youth, and as I said, also sponsorship. A lot of young women, but also young men, have a dearth of female leaders that they can look up to and see as role models. And yet there's many of us who are in leadership, whether in business or in politics or in civil society, who have a lot about our lives and our experiences that can contribute to the way that young people can progress.
I tell you, I believe that if you take this journey from where you've started, the more you go into it and face more challenges and overcome them together, the more the Almighty will support you, the more credible you will become, and you will find a lot of people, including people who are silent, who don't always come to you and walk to you and tell you, well done, but will support you.
You don't educate the next generation, it could be over.